Traveling through the end of a dynasty filled with demons and warriors, Lin Xuankong, who was poor and weak, realized that he had a strong destiny. The longer he lived, the stronger his talent and understanding would become. At the age of 50, the cultivation speed increases by 50 times, at the age of 80 it increases by 80 times, and at the age of 300 it can increase by 300 times. Thousands of years later, Lin Xuankong, who had already regained his youth, suddenly looked back. The countless strong enemies he killed have been destroyed by mud and bones, and have dissipated into thin air. The willow tree he personally enlightened has become the master of billions of demons. The full ship and bright moon depart from here, forever. Life is a lonely person. Keywords of the novel. I am old and strong in the demon world without pop-ups. I am old and strong in the demon world. Download the complete TXT collection, and read the latest chapters in the demon world. Chapter 1. Old and Strong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Old and strong. The moon hangs on the willow branches. Xiaogua, Day's prefecture, in an old wooden building, Lin Xuankong, lying on his side on the wooden bed, suddenly arched his body and coughed violently. After coughing for more than 10 times, he barely took a breath. As an online author, I finally wrote a novel with an average order of 100,000 yuan. I was so excited that I exploded into 10 chapters overnight. Is there anything wrong? But as soon as you close your eyes and open them, how come you have traveled through a foolish and backward feudal era, and you are still critically ill and won't be able to live for a few days? Just as the thought flashed through my heart, the cold of early spring hit me, causing my throat to itch and a violent cough. Seeing that Lin Xuankong couldn't sleep at night, he struggled to get up and sat by the bed in his clothes. After traveling for 3 days, he has absorbed some of the memories of his predecessor. His predecessor had the same name as him, but his family passed away and he made a living by selling pancakes. Originally, my physical condition was relatively good, but unfortunately, after getting typhoid fever, my health deteriorated and I lost my health due to being greedy for a few drinks. With a sigh, Lin Xuankong looked at the wooden cabinet by the bedside, where there was a bright red letter of happiness pasted. The bright red paper, pasted on the old wooden cabinet that had fallen off paint, looked out of place. Suddenly, footsteps could be heard outside the wooden house. Quickly, a young woman in a green shirt entered the door carrying a bowl of medicinal soup. The dim light of the oil lamp shone on her. She was about 2 or 8 years old, tall and curvaceous, with a beautiful and flawless appearance. The woman glanced at him and said, "Drink this medicine. After drinking the medicine, your cough will improve." Lin Xuankong was surprised and said, "There's only money left at home to buy sorghum noodles. Where's the silver to buy medicine?" The woman frowned and said, "I have been a maid in the Huang family for more than 10 years, and I have secretly accumulated some broken silver as a dowry." Upon hearing her say this, Lin Xuankong couldn't help but remain silent. This woman's name is Li Xiaolan, who was originally a close mate of the Miss Huang family in the west of the city. When I grew up, I was favored by Mr. Huang due to my outstanding talent and decided to take her as a concubine. Unfortunately, the mistress of the Huang family has a big background and is jealous. She refuses to agree to this matter, and Mr. Huang is helpless. He only listens to his wife's advice and drives Li Xiaolan out of the Huang mansion. Unexpectedly, the malicious mistress still refuses to release her hatred and forces her to marry her impoverished, 59-year-old predecessor. The marriage was made 3 days ago. A pair sister fell from the sky, and of course her predecessor was overjoyed. On his wedding day, he took out all the coffins and invited the neighbors to have a good meal and drink. Unexpectedly, his predecessor was old and had not yet recovered from typhoid fever. He also indulged in a few glasses of wine. After the neighbors dispersed, before he had a chance to marry, the person was gone. Then Lin Xuankong crossed over. With the lessons learned from his predecessor, Lin Xuankong has been hesitant to do anything with Li Xiaolan these past few days. This old man's body is too weak, and he is afraid that it won't be much better yet, so he raised his whip first. I don't know if there's a chance to take good care of my body. The old man talked about being a teenage maniac, with a pear tree crushing a crabapple. However, the character of Li Xiaolan is undeniable. In order to apply medicine to myself, I even touched the secretly hidden dowry and silently prepared the medicine for myself. As a result, I feel a bit embarrassed to take action. Thank you, thank you. Lin Xuankong was originally planning to say thank you to the lady, but when it came to his lips, he still didn't feel embarrassed to say it. You and I don't need to be polite. Li Xiaolan had a faint hint of resentment and worry in her eyes, but a smile squeezed out of her face. She leaned the medicine bowl to her mouth and blew it, then took another sip. It's not too hot, let's drink the medicine. Taking the bowl, Lin Xuankong felt a little wary. After carefully examining the medicinal soup, he secretly shook his head again. A few days ago, he was lying in bed and even had some difficulty getting out of bed. It was this little lady who was busy taking care of him. Although she always felt a sense of alienation when interacting with herself, it was evident that she had a kind personality, and she took a sip of this medicinal soup herself after pinching his nose and taking a sip. Lin Xuankong paused for a moment. After the medicinal soup entered the abdomen, a warm current slowly dissipated, and all four limbs and bones felt more comfortable. No abdominal pain, no dizziness. I am indeed too cautious. He raised his hand and drank most of the remaining bowl of medicinal soup. Not long after, the dry itching in my throat has indeed subsided a lot, and even my weak body seems to have gained some strength. Li Xiaolan saw that his face had improved and her concern in her eyes had eased slightly. She took the bowl, left the room, and walked upstairs. On their third day of marriage, apart from taking care of Lin Xuankong, the two slept separately, one upstairs and the other downstairs. At this moment, Lin Xuankong sitting by the bed was stunned. After the bowl of medicinal soup took effect, a voice suddenly rang in his ear. Qi and blood reached 5 points, activating the first talent of destiny. Immediately after, several lines of purple and gold characters appeared in his mind. Lin Xuankong. The remaining lifespan of 32 days destiny. Old and healthy, destiny's first talent. Aging into essence, increase cultivation speed according to age. Currently at 59, cultivation speed increases by 50 times qi and blood. 5/100000. Sensing those few lines of big characters, Lin Xuankong's face couldn't help but move. As an internet author in his past life, he has certainly read many online novels, in which the golden finger is almost a must-have for travelers. It seems that I triggered this golden finger because I drank a medicinal soup to replenish qi and blood. But if this golden finger is really true, my current situation is very dangerous, and I only have 32 days of longevity left. He frowned and carefully looked at his body. Judging from his weak walking legs, shaking hands while carrying dishes, frequent urination, and difficulty waking up, the longevity displayed on his golden finger was likely true. No, absolutely not, since I have revived myself once, and by chance, I have married a beautiful woman that even the master envies, and now I have a golden finger. I absolutely cannot just accept my fate like this. I must save myself. Lin Xuankong frowned slightly and pondered carefully. If the golden finger is true, the cultivation speed of one's first destiny talent will increase by 50 times, which is a bit outrageous. According to the memory of its predecessor, the Day's mansion belonged to the Xia dynasty, which prioritized martial arts. The powerful officials and descendants of aristocratic families were all skilled in martial arts, and those martial arts masters were extremely powerful. They could kill demons and even ordinary people like pinching chickens. The Huang family, where Li Xiaolan used to be, has inherited martial arts. Many years ago, Mr. Huang was a master of the 6th level of transformation, which is why he was able to become wealthy. He was also sworn brothers and held an extraordinary position with the county magistrate in Day's mansion. The mother of the Huang family also comes from a martial arts family, and it is said that the martial arts realm is even more powerful. Otherwise, Mr. Huang wouldn't be so afraid of himself. In addition, the government, martial arts schools, and gangs of Ozawa Prefecture also have martial arts experts in charge. The martial arts of Days Prefecture are so prosperous. If you have the opportunity to cultivate martial arts and the talent to increase your cultivation speed 50 times, you can definitely make your body better. Of course, if one's body is old and decaying, one must never cultivate a strong martial arts path. Otherwise, if it leads to a loss of qi and blood, one may not have a chance to live for 32 days. One must find a martial arts path that can warm and nourish the body. The problem is, in my memory, the cheapest martial arts school in Ozawa Prefecture also needs to pay 50 taels of silver before I can start practicing martial arts. 50 taels of silver is equivalent to the income of an ordinary family for over 20 years. How can one earn it in just 10 or 8 days? If you rely on selling pancakes, even if you sell tens of thousands of pancakes, you won't save enough 50 taels of silver. While frowning and pondering, a bang 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 sound suddenly came from the entrance of the outer room, followed by a rough voice from a man. Old Lin, open the door quickly. I want to buy some pancakes. It's almost midnight, how could anyone come to buy pancakes at such a time? Lin Xuankong stood up and walked trembling towards the outside. He quietly leaned towards the crack in the door and looked outside. I saw a few burly men swaying outside the door. The person who knocked on the door had a dark face, was 8 feet tall, wearing a black short shirt with 100 steel refining knives hanging from his waist. Under the moonlight, the steel knives emitted a cold and faint light. With just one glance, Lin Xuankong's heart sank. My predecessor walked the streets and alleys selling pancakes, and I have long seen this black man. If you want to talk about the worst things to do in the western city of Days Prefecture, besides the martial arts aristocratic family Huang family and the government, of course, it is the landlords and gentry. However, those landlords and gentry dare not offend a family. The Black Tiger Gang. It is rumored in the market that the leader of the Black Tiger Gang has advanced to the 5th level of transformation, which is not much worse than Mr. Huang. The leaders of each hall below are also extremely strong martial arts masters. The black man was called Zhang Wu. In the later stage of his transformation, he became a leader of the Black Tiger sect because of his great strength. The Wutong village was one of his territory. How could a Black Tiger gang leader like Zhang Wu, who usually eats big fish and meat, come here to buy pancakes? Old Lin too, are you dead? Open the door quickly, I need to buy some pancakes. Zhang Wu had a wicked smile on his face and patted the door a few more times. This 5 powerful picture is extremely powerful, and the door frame is shaken by his slap. It is estimated that with a few more strokes, the door will be shattered by his slap. At this moment, many people on the streets outside have been woken up, and people are peeking out from the windows of many wooden buildings in the neighborhood to watch. After seeing that Zhang Wu was knocking on the door, those neighbors suddenly changed their faces and turned back, afraid to even watch the excitement. Zhang Wu is a powerful martial artist and a big boss of the Black Tiger sect. There are hundreds of families and more than 2,000 people in Wutong. Everyone is afraid of him. Brother Wu, this old Lin can't really be dead. In that case, his newly married wife will suffer. We need to help her. Right, Lin's sister. Law, hurry up and open the door. Don't be afraid, 5th brother will take good care of you. If we don't open the door again, we'll break in. Don't worry, Lin's sister. Law. Brother Wu is really amazing and can definitely take care of you comfortably. Ha ha ha. A few strong men behind Zhang Wu, with their faces full of flesh and fat, obviously drank a lot of alcohol. They shook their bodies one by one and laughed wildly, clearly eating Ding Lin Xuankong and his wife. Lin Xuankong watched from the crack in the door as the few people looked shameless and reckless. He couldn't help but grit his teeth. These guys knocked on the door in the middle of the night, and it was indeed because of his beautiful little lady. Perhaps she was seen by someone while she was taking medicine for herself. At this moment, a low voice suddenly came from behind. Open the door, this wooden door can't stop them. Upon hearing the sound, Lin Xuankong frowned uncontrollably. He turned around and pulled Li Xiaolan aside, whispering, "Why did you come over? These guys are obviously all here for you." He thought for a moment and said, "Hurry up and leave this place through the back door. I'm a dying poor ghost, they won't do anything to me. If they can't find you, they'll probably leave." Upon hearing what he said, Li Xiaolan's faint resentment in her eyes dissipated a bit. She shook her head slightly and said, "I hid today, they will come tomorrow, they will hide tomorrow, they will come again in the future, hiding is impossible. Then let's leave Day's mansion," Lin Xuankong said decisively. Li Xiaolan frowned and said, "There are so many demons outside the Day's mansion that it's so easy to leave." After speaking, she pulled out a black veil from her sleeve, covered her face, and walked to the wooden door. With her hand, she pulled the latch and the door creaked open. The moonlight outside suddenly shone in, landing on Lin Xuankong's frowning face and also on Li Xiaolan in the green shirt. Newcomers seeking support for new books, collecting and following up, please. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Empress is wrong, Jin Songhe Yanshou Gong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Empress is wrong, Jin Songhe Yanshou Gong. A few people outside the door were surprised to see a woman opening the door. After taking a few breaths, a strong man smiled and said, "Oh my sister in law has personally opened the door to pick up the guests." The other strong men burst into laughter. The gaze of several people fell recklessly on Li Xiaolan, and Zhang Wu's eyes turned even redder, as if he wished to eat Li Xiaolan on the spot. However, Li Xiaolan's eyes remained calm. She took out a torch from her waist and blew it, then turned around and walked towards the room. "Since you have come over, let's go in and have a chat," she said. A few people's eyes lit up, and Zhang Wu took the lead. They pushed Lin Xuankong aside and walked into the room. "Xiangong, can you help me pick up a can of water from the kitchen?" "Zhang Wuya, come and sit down. I have something to say to you." Li Xiaolan walked over to the table, lit an oil lamp with a torch, and sat upright on a stool. A few members of the Black Tiger gang walked over with a grin, and Zhang Wui sat across from Li Xiaolan. "Sister-in-law, what kind of heartfelt words do you want to tell me? Why don't you go upstairs and let's talk slowly, the two of us?" Lin Xuankong listened to Li Xiaolan's call of Xiangong, and saw the scene before him, feeling mixed in his heart, especially, looking at her calm gaze in front of the oil lamp. Lin Xuankong was a bit surprised. The young lady was very upset. Was she trying to pretend to be calm? Also, what does she mean by asking herself to go to the kitchen to fetch water? A few thoughts turned in his heart, and he trembled as he walked towards the kitchen. As he entered the kitchen, he looked at the sharp knife placed next to the chopping block, and a fierce expression appeared in his eyes. He walked over and hid the knife in his sleeve, then picked up a can of water before turning around and walking towards the outside. Just as he had just stepped outside, the scene before him left him stunned. Beside the wooden table, before the oil lamp, only Li Xiaolan is still sitting there. The members of the Black Tiger gang had already left the room, and the strong man walking at the back was still very sensible and bending over to close the door. Moreover, at the moment of closing the door, the strong man looked at Li Xiaolan with deep fear in his eyes. Old age, bad eyesight. Lin Xuankong couldn't help but lift his hand and wipe his eyes, but at this moment, the wooden door slammed shut. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Lin Xuankong quickened his pace and walked unsteadily to the wooden door. He looked out from the crack in the door. I saw Zhang Wu and a few others walking silently towards the distance, with a hurried look as if their buttocks were burned by fire. There was no trace of arrogance when they arrived. Lin Xuankong turned around and walked back to the table. What the hell is going on here? Li Xiaolan took off her black veil and revealed her flawless face. She took the water jar from Lin Xuankong's hand and poured a glass of water, saying, "They're here to buy pancakes. I said you haven't made pancakes for several days, so they left." Lin Xuankong's face was speechless, and ghosts believed in your mouth. He frowned and said, after taking the medicine, I'm actually much better. I can make some pancakes for them. Li Xiaolan, who was about to drink water, couldn't help but shake the cup in her hand when she heard him say so, and then she glanced at him with Yanshu's eyes. She was already extremely beautiful, with a slightly hazy feeling under the oil lamp. At this moment, her eyes were horizontal, full of beauty, and Lin Xuankong felt his heart beating faster. Li Xiaolan put down her water glass and raised her eyebrows slightly. There's no need to hide our current relationship from you, she said. She pointed to an iron ball under the oil lamp and said, this iron ball was originally Zhang Wu's knife, but I pinched it twice and it looked like this. After seeing it, Zhang Wu felt like he had come to the wrong place and left with someone. What? Lin Xuankong looked at it with some surprise. He had a dim old eye and had not noticed before that there was an iron ball under the oil lamp. Lin Xuankong reached out to grab it and suddenly realized that the iron ball was quite heavy. His old arm couldn't lift it with one hand. Looking carefully through the oil lamp, I saw dozens of grooves crisscrossing the iron ball, which indeed looked like finger marks. He squeezed the steel knife into a round ball with his hand and scared off the leader of the Black Tiger sect who had been running wild in Wudong for many years. It was this cute little lady who did this. Lin Xuankong looked at Li Xiaolan's fair and slender hands. He suddenly felt a little relieved that he didn't do anything to this little lady just a few days ago to save his life. Otherwise, if she were unhappy, he would pinch his little hand and the consequences would be unimaginable. My wife is actually a hidden martial arts master. With such strength, she can't go to any gang without being a big shot. Lin Xuankong suddenly felt a bit dry in his mouth and tongue. After pouring himself a glass of water and taking a few sips to calm his nerves, he finally looked at Li Xiaolan and said, Mother, why did Li Miss also practice martial arts? How many layers are you from the earth? He originally wanted to call her, but when he spoke, his tongue was a bit tangled and he didn't call her out. Li Xiaolan said, I have been with Miss for more than 10 years. When she practiced martial arts, I was always by her side, so I followed her to practice martial arts. As for the realm, I can't beat Mrs. Ma of the Huang family, otherwise I wouldn't have been forced to give up by her. Let's not say it. She glanced outside and said, it's getting late and you're not feeling well. Take a break earlier. Tomorrow morning, I'll go to Dr. Hua's place to get some medicine for you. Wait a moment. The lady in front of her knew martial arts, and Lin Xuankong wouldn't have missed the opportunity. Li Xiaolan frowned and said, what's going on? Lin Xuankong said with a serious expression, I also want to cultivate martial arts. I hope you can pass me some martial arts techniques. As for the reward. Li Xiaolan glanced at him and said, there's no need to talk about compensation between us. As for practicing martial arts, at your age. Practicing martial arts places great emphasis on qi and blood. It's best to start practicing at a young age and lay a solid foundation before achieving success. In addition, once a cultivator exceeds 40, their qi and blood begin to decline. To maintain their level, they need to pay various costs. It is impossible for you to enter any realm at your age when you start practicing, Lin Xuankong said. I know, but I want to give it a try. Li Xiaolan frowned and pondered for a moment when she saw his resolute expression on her face. What I am practicing is a rather fierce martial arts, which is not suitable for you. However, when I was by the lady's side, I once flipped through her collection of Songhe Yanshou Gong. That Songhe Yanshou Gong is a martial arts technique that warms and nourishes the foundation, and can also elevate one's realm. It seems to be more suitable for you. Just Songhe Yanshou Gong, this name is suitable for someone like me who is not very old. Lin Xuankong asked, what is it? Li Xiaolan said, Miss and her family have practiced this technique for a period of time, but they no longer practice it because it is extremely difficult to get started with. The secret script states that one can extend their life by 3 years by entering the beginner's level, but those from the Huang family have practiced for 3 or 4 years, with various expensive medicines in between. But none of them have entered the beginner's level. In addition, the possibility of increasing longevity is elusive and uncertain, so most people have given up on continuing their cultivation by entering the beginner's level of cultivation. One can extend their lifespan by 3 years. If it were a higher realm, it wouldn't take 5, 8, or even a few decades. This technique is very powerful. It is definitely much more powerful than the techniques one can learn in a martial arts school after earning money. The people of the Huang family are not good at practicing expensive medicines, which indicates that this technique is indeed difficult to cultivate. However, if they have a 50 times cultivation speed bonus, they may become successful. Lin Xuankong said, "Do you remember that technique?" Li Xiaolan smiled and said, "Since I have seen it once, I can naturally remember it, and I have also practiced for a period of time." Lin Xuankong no longer hesitated. "Then please, if you're not tired, why don't you tell me now?" Li Xiaolan sighed slightly as she saw his sincere expression and fiery eyes. "At your age, it's hard to cultivate such a difficult skill. Since you want to learn it, let me demonstrate it to you tonight first." After a moment, Li Xiaolan explained her mind and breathing techniques in detail while slowly practicing them. Lin Xuankong widened his eyes and stared at every movement of Li Xiaolan, carefully listening to her explanation. Li Xiaolan is about the same height as Lin Xuankong, quite tall and curvaceous. Although it is a set of martial arts techniques, under her practice, it looks like an exquisite and unparalleled dance of beauty. It's just that his life is at stake at this moment, and Lin Xuankong wouldn't even notice these things. From beginning to end, there was no ripple in his heart. He only focused on explaining every word and action of hers deeply in his heart. Half an hour has passed. Li Mulan let out a slight breath and withdrew her movements. "So, how much did you remember?" Lin Xuankong recalled, "I have memorized both my mental and breathing techniques, and I have also memorized 60% or 70% of my movements." Li Xiaolan nodded slightly and said, "Those movements are not a big deal for now." Before entering this cultivation method, the main focus was on practicing mind and breathing techniques. This mental and breathing technique requires practicing twice a day to have the effect of warming and nourishing the body, but one should not practice too much, otherwise it will consume the mind and energy, especially when you are old. Remember not to practice more than twice. Besides, practicing martial arts is not a one-time achievement, especially with this longevity technique, which is extremely dull and slow to enter the realm. It's normal for you to give up one day. Don't force yourself to avoid getting demonic and damaging your body. After speaking, she stood up and walked upstairs, but secretly said to herself, "This pine and crane life extending skill requires a high level of martial arts skills. Even with the combination of precious medicines, it takes several years to get started." The entire Huang family once had dozens of people who devoted themselves to practicing for 3 or 4 years, but none of them were effective. Only themselves and the young lady got started. I was praised by the young lady for having unparalleled talents and being the most suitable age for practicing martial arts. I also practiced for a long time before getting started. Lin Xuankong is already 50.9 years old, and his qi and blood have already decayed beyond recognition. Moreover, his family comes from a poor family and has no opportunity to take precious medicines. It will be extremely difficult for him to get started. Without more than a decade of cultivation, he may not have any effect, but can he still live for more than a decade? It's just that although we don't have a real marital relationship, we also have the name of husband and wife. Since he wants to practice so much, let him go. It can be considered as a refuge before he died of old age. Thinking of this, she sighed slightly and walked up the stairs. Lin Xuankong beside the table focused his attention on his mind. Songhe longevity extension skill. Beginner 0-3000 inch. After he recorded the mind and breathing techniques of the pine and crane longevity extension technique, this message came to his mind. At this moment, he had just focused his attention on the message. The 4 golden and purple characters, old and strong, suddenly shone with some light. Then, the message of the line of pine and crane life extending skill flashed. In an instant, the message changed. Pine and crane life extending skill. Not beginner 0/60" 3000, 60, exactly 50 times less. Lin Xuankong's face couldn't help but move. It seemed that his old and strong destiny could indeed increase his cultivation speed by 50 times. I just don't know how many times I need to practice and how many days it will take to complete these 60 points of proficiency. He got up and walked to his wooden bed, sitting cross-legged with some difficulty, practicing according to his mind and breathing techniques. Quickly, he felt that his body's qi and blood gradually became more active, and began to move slowly in accordance with the movements of his mind, moving through the 5 organs, 6 organs, and all 4 limbs and bones. It is indeed a true martial arts technique. Lin Xuankong felt secretly happy in his heart, but he didn't dare to be too distracted. He quickly suppressed his joy and started practicing more seriously. Bang bang closed the door and windows to prevent theft. Nearly an hour later, the sound of the watchman's banging came from a distance on the street. Lin Xuankong slowly opened his eyes while practicing, feeling his whole body warm and cozy. He put the clothes on his body aside, only to find that he, who had become extremely afraid of the cold due to his old age, did not feel much coldness in this spring cold. He raised his hand and saw that his arms were stable, no longer experiencing the previously uncomfortable feeling of trembling and uncontrollable. He moved his legs and stood up from the bed, only to find that when he woke up, he didn't have as much effort as before. Lin Xuankong's face lit up with joy, and he had only used his mind technique twice to achieve such an effect. With joy, he focused his attention and looked at the message in his mind. I don't know how much proficiency has been improved after 2 rounds of using the mind technique of the Pine Crane Life Extending Technique. This is really crucial for myself, who doesn't have much lifespan. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. He turns out to be a genius. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. He turns out to be a genius. Pine and Crane Life Extension Skill. Beginner 2 for 60". Seeing that the progress had improved by 2 points, Lin Xuankong's face lit up with more joy. According to the mental practice, with each round of practice, the foundation and physique of the Pine and Crane Life Extension technique will slightly change, but that change is extremely subtle. Normally, it is not as obvious as one's own change. If someone like me doesn't shake their hands or have weak legs, the effect is really too obvious. If the cultivator of the Huang family, after 2 rounds of cultivation, changes are also so obvious, they will definitely not give up on cultivation. The current situation can only indicate one issue, that is my own strength, which has really increased my cultivation speed 50 times. Practicing 2 rounds on my own may be equivalent to other cultivators practicing 100 rounds for a full 50 days. In this way, my body changes will be so obvious. Old and strong, my destiny is indeed strong, and the Songhe Yanshou Gong is definitely worth getting started. If I were more diligent and practiced for 1 more round. Lin Xuankong sat back on the bed, secretly practicing his mind techniques. However, after just taking more than 10 breaths, his mind became somewhat dazed. Moreover, the remaining 5 points of qi and blood in the information column suddenly decreased slightly. He quickly stopped his mind techniques and relaxed his body. It seems that this cultivation method can only be practiced twice a day. Otherwise, going too far is not enough, and it will actually consume the mind, energy, and blood. However, even if you only practice 2 rounds a day, after 30 days, you will definitely have a chance to get started. Moreover, this Pine and Crane longevity extending technique belongs to an internal cultivation method, which can enhance one's physique from the inside out and also make oneself a martial arts practitioner in the realm of transformation. Thinking of this, Shouyuan was about to face the humiliation and frustration of Zhang Wu and others, and Lin Xuankong's eyes lit up with a strange light. The Pine and Crane longevity extending technique is so mysterious that it is the key to changing his own destiny. In the future, he must practice continuously every day. In a blink of an eye, 10 days passed. Over the past 10 days, Lin Xian has been working tirelessly on his flight attendants. Li Xiaolan disguises herself once a day and goes out to retrieve a pair of nourishing qi and blood medicine. After boiling it, she brings it to his house. But the little lady, because she was the maid of the first lady, was not very good at cooking. Lin Xuankong had to cook by herself and cooked some vegetables porridge every day. Although limited by conditions, there is no condiment, but his craftsmanship is good. The congee cooked is soft and hard, and the vegetables are fresh and delicious. What the little lady eats is delicious. After spending many days together, the faint sense of alienation is slowly dissipating. This morning, after completing his cultivation, Lin Xuankong suddenly felt something unusual. After completing his cultivation, the qi and blood that warm and nourish his body will gradually calm down. This time, after completing the exercise, there was a subtle stream of qi and blood that did not remain silent. Instead, it moved along the path of the mind technique and condensed all the other qi and blood together. With the movement of the pine and crane qi and blood, the warm and harmonious feeling becomes more and more obvious, as if every minute and every moment, the body is gradually improving. Extraordinary qi and blood. Lin Xuankong was pleasantly surprised. According to the mind technique, after the body's flesh and blood are deeply nourished by the qi and blood of the pine and crane, it will spontaneously produce a stream of pine and crane shedding qi and blood. Practitioners practice diligently and never stop. After the shedding qi and blood accumulate to 3 streams and become stronger, they can advance to the first layer of shedding qi and blood, possessing 1,000 pounds of power. In addition, according to the mind technique, Songhe Gong belongs to a gradual internal skill. Practitioners need to meditate for 1 or 2 years before the first wave of extraordinary qi and blood appears. However, after only 10 days of cultivation, extraordinary qi and blood appear. Songhe Yanshou skill. Beginners 2060. He glanced at the progress of the Songhe Yanshou Gong with some anticipation, and saw that the progress had increased again, reaching 20 o'clock, which greatly satisfied him. Lin Xuankong was overjoyed and looked outside, only to find that with the nourishment of his extraordinary qi and blood, his already dim old eyes gradually became clearer. It's just early morning at this moment. The room was not yet very bright, but he could clearly see everything in every corner of the dilapidated wooden building. He walked to the corner and looked at a circular iron ball thrown in the corner. This iron ball was made by Zhang Wu's refining steel knife and weighed 7 or 8 pounds. Lin Xuankong squatted down and reached out to grab the iron ball. He had already grabbed it with one hand, and it was quite easy. It seemed like there was no problem with 4 or 5 more. Thinking of the scene where he was unable to grasp this iron ball at all, Lin Xuankong couldn't help but feel excited. Now, his strength is almost as strong as that of a young strong man. After being nourished by his extraordinary qi and blood, he has undergone such a great change. Ha! Li Xiaolan's slightly surprised voice echoed from behind. Upon hearing her voice, Lin Xuankong was taken aback. How many layers of Xiaolan's strength are there? She stood behind her without realizing it, and she was completely unaware. Lin Xuankong turned his head and saw Li Xiaolan's pretty face staring at him with some surprise. She turned her sparkling eyes and kept looking up and down, until she stared at Lin Xuankong a little hairy. Then she spoke up and said, "You have already cultivated the qi and blood of the pine and crane shedding from the mortal world." The young lady sensed it, and Lin Xuankong couldn't hide it. "Thanks to your teaching of martial arts and the medicinal soup that nourishes qi and blood." Li Mulan shook her head slightly and said, "Those medicinal soups that nourish qi and blood are much inferior to the precious tonics taken by the cultivators of the Huang family. It is impossible for them to be the reason for your cultivation of extraordinary qi and blood. As far as I know, most of the cultivators of the Huang family have been practicing for about 2 years when they use the pine and crane technique to cultivate their first extraordinary qi and blood. However, you only need 10 days of this cultivation speed." She furrowed her brows slightly, and the young lady always said that she was an unparalleled cultivation genius. Among the thousands of cultivators in the entire Day's mansion, no one could compare with her. When I was bullied by the mistress of the Huang family, she told me to endure it and not show off in the forest. As long as I focus on cultivation, there will always be a day to rise. But when I first cultivated the first wave of pine and crane metamorphosis chi and blood, it took me nearly 2 months. If you are an unparalleled genius, what kind of monster is this guy in front of you? The strangest thing is that he was originally just a little old man with weakened chi and blood. Lin Xuankong said, practicing is a bit fast. Perhaps it's because my physique is suitable for practicing Songhe Gong. Seeing Li Xiaolan's surprised expression, Lin Xuankong gave a random reason. Upon hearing what he said, Li Xiaolan frowned and pondered. There is indeed a question about whether one's physical constitution is suitable for martial arts cultivation. Perhaps this is really the reason. But even if there is a reason why the physique is suitable for Songhe Gong, it is too fast to cultivate the extraordinary qi and blood in just 10 days. Moreover, even if it is for this reason, being defeated by a young old man with weakened qi and blood at a cultivation speed that exceeds so many times, he is still vulnerable, even though he is his own. After a while, Li Xiaolan's stunning face gradually regained calmness, then she raised her small face and made a serious expression like a martial arts senior. Since you have a good talent and are so suitable for practicing Songhe Gong, then practice well. Just before this serious expression could last long, the corners of her mouth playfully curled up. Since you have already cultivated that extraordinary qi and blood skill, you are also considered a member of the martial arts sect. Practitioners have always attached great importance to inheritance. Since you have learned the technique from me, please call me master in the future. Lin Xuankong was taken aback for a moment, then shook his head repeatedly and said, since we are already married, how can we still be called masters and disciples? Isn't it chaotic? Li Xiaolan was originally smiling at the corner of her mouth, but when she heard him say that, her pretty face couldn't help but be stunned. But soon she seemed to have thought of something, giving Lin Xuankong a sideways glance and saying, since you have cultivated extraordinary qi and blood, and your body is also strong, then hurry up and make pancakes and make money for your family. These days, everything I eat, drink, and use is all spent on my dowry. Do you know how many years I've saved up to save up those silver coins? They've all been spent. Starting from today, if you can't make money, you won't be able to drink that kind of medicinal soup that nourishes qi and blood anymore. At this point, she paused and said, doing more physical work while having abundant qi and blood is beneficial for cultivation. Hurry up and go work. Lin Xuankong saw her say this, and his smile grew stronger. Okay, I will definitely make a lot of money. Take good care of you. After speaking, without waiting for Li Xiaolan to reply, she quickly walked towards the kitchen. Li Xiaolan spat and said, who wants you to raise them? However, when Lin Xuankong entered the kitchen, she listened to the busy voices in the kitchen, and the resentment in her eyes quietly dissipated. Sitting at the table, after sighing about the existence of all kinds of monsters and geniuses in the vast world, she secretly thought to herself. The dowry is almost finished, and it's time for me to find a way to earn some money with him. When I was at the Huang family, I learned embroidery with several maids for a period of time, and the sisters all praised me for my excellent embroidery skills. You can actually embroider some handkerchiefs and sell them yourself. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. You embroider flowers, come to me, sell pancakes, fatal crisis. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. You embroider flowers, come to me, sell pancakes, fatal crisis. Time flies in a blink of an eye, and another dozen or so days have passed. This morning, Lin Xuankong finished his cultivation and went into the kitchen. He filled 2 willow baskets with sorghum flour pancakes and covered them with a white cloth washed with pear and orchid juice. After crouching slightly, he effortlessly lifted a nearly 100-pound load. Songhe longevity extending skill. Beginner 58/60, extraordinary qi and blood. 118/100000. Over the past decade or so, his progress in Songhe Gong has been continuously improving, and he has already cultivated the second wave of extraordinary qi and blood. His body and flesh have also become stronger and stronger under the nourishment of extraordinary qi and blood. 3 or 4 days ago, in the quiet of the night, he tried on the street. With a distance of 100 steps, he could run to the end in just over 3 breaths, which can be considered as 100 meters and 10 seconds. This explosive power is extremely close to the world record of 100 meters in his previous life. Because he has abundant qi and blood, and his endurance far exceeds that of ordinary people. Carrying a heavy burden of 100 pounds, he shouted all the way. Even if he walked for more than an hour, he didn't feel any fatigue. The most amazing thing is that someone with this kind of body is a 59-year-old man. The mystery of Songhe Yanshou Gong and the magic of being old and healthy are fully demonstrated in him. Of course, it's not just something that makes him happy. In the past 2 days, he has found that the growth rate of strength has become extremely slow. It is obvious that his body has reached the limit of an ordinary human body now. The next step is to cultivate the third wave of extraordinary qi and blood, break through the bottleneck, and then continue to improve. Additionally, in the past few days, in the evening, he occasionally has inexplicable absences and suddenly loses consciousness of counting breath time. When sleeping, there may occasionally be extreme chest tightness. In this situation, it seems like something is wrong with his body, and there may be major problems at any time. However, his life chart shows that he only has 3 days of longevity left. Through 50 times the cultivation speed and destiny, Lin Xuankong knew that even though he was as strong as an ox now, he would probably die inexplicably on the day when his longevity was depleted. After all, although his body was strong, it did not mean that all the hidden injuries caused by years of hard work and illness had disappeared. However, Lin Xuankong didn't worry too much. After so many days of cultivation, accompanied by the progress of the Songhe Gong, he gained a lot of new insights into the mental techniques of the Songhe Yanshou Gong. He is very confident that there should be a great chance for him to reach the entry-level tomorrow, which will nourish the dark wounds in his body and greatly increase his strength, extending his life by about 3 years. Let go of your worries. He was carrying a burden and preparing to go out and sell pancakes to make money as usual. Suddenly, Li Xiaolan's voice rang from behind. I embroidered more than 10 handkerchiefs in the past 2 days. Take them to Wang Ji's ready-to-wear shop. Why does the little lady always like to follow behind? Lin Xuankong is very helpless. After he took the embroidered handkerchief, Li Xiaolan took out another handkerchief from her sleeve and handed it to him. This handkerchief is one of the better embroidered ones among the dozen or so. I'll use it for you. Lin Xuankong's heart couldn't help but warm. He gently took the handkerchief and said seriously, embroidered handkerchiefs are so good, I don't have much to reciprocate. Why don't I give you a pancake? The next moment, the little lady who took the pancake had a face full of astonishment and a bit messy. Lin Xuankong pushed open the wooden door and walked briskly onto the dirt road outside. After nearly an hour, after passing a few streets and selling more than half of the pancakes, a 14-year-old boy with a basket approached the roadside. The young man glanced at the handkerchief pinned around Lin Xuankong's waist and smiled. Uncle Lin, Auntie has embroidered a beautiful handkerchief again. TSK, Auntie's embroidered handkerchief earns more money than you from selling pancakes. I don't know where Uncle Lin came from, but he actually married such a good auntie. Lin Xuankong raised his hand and rubbed the boy's messy hair. What little aunt? Auntie is auntie, auntie is auntie. This young man is the son of the neighbor Li Dahu's family, named Li Xiaohu. He often sells fruits and peaches on the street. He would send a few fruits and melons that he couldn't sell out on a regular basis to the Lin family, and occasionally indulge in Lin's meals. They went back and forth, and the relationship between the two families was quite good. Moreover, Li Dahu and Li Xiaohu, unlike other neighbors, never discuss Lin Xuankong or laugh at him for not living long after marrying his little wife. Xiaohu looked around and suddenly leaned closer, whispering, Uncle Lin, I have something to tell you. Yesterday, while you were selling pancakes on the street, I saw Ma Xiong and others secretly following you for a long time. I don't know what ends up to. Upon hearing what he said, Lin Xuankong couldn't help but furrow his brow. Ma Xiong was a member of the Black Tiger Gang and was said to be close to the realm of transformation. His strength was quite impressive and he was the right-hand man of the big shot Zhang Wu. He secretly tracked himself. The members of the Black Tiger Gang usually eat, drink, and have fun. How could they track themselves for no reason? Was it under the command of Zhang Wu? Although I hate the domineering Zhang Wu and others, I have never shown it. Moreover, after Zhang Wu was intimidated by Xiaolan last time, I shouldn't have the courage to peep at her again. No. Zhang Wu cannot deal with Xiaolan, but in his eyes, he is an aging guy, he can easily kill himself like this. As long as he unknowingly kills himself, Xiaolan becomes a widow, and he has a chance. It is very likely that this is the reason. He's not afraid of thieves stealing, just afraid of thieves thinking. Lin Xuankong's eyes suddenly showed a hint of coldness. He glanced around and then took out a few pancakes from the willow basket. Don't leak what you told me today to anyone else, he said. Xiaohu took the pancake and nodded vigorously. Don't worry, Uncle Lin. My mouth is very strict. However, you must be careful, Uncle Lin. Lin Xuankong pondered for a moment, no longer following his usual route home. He specifically chose a street with a lot of pedestrians and walked quickly. On the second floor of Hongyun restaurant, dozens of members of the Black Tiger Gang are pushing cups and changing cups, enjoying themselves. At the table by the window, Zhang Wu stared at the crowds coming and going on Qingshui Street, while Ma Xiong respectfully poured a glass of wine for Zhang Wu. Don't worry, Brother Wu, it's just dealing with a 60-year-old man. Zhang Wu nodded and said, we must be clean and tidy, leaving no beginning or end. We must not reveal any information. Also, how is the progress at Wang Ji's ready-to-wear shop, which sells colored threads and handkerchiefs? Ma Xiong smiled and said, Wang Pa from the ready-to-wear shop is a veteran of the martial arts world. Don't you understand her methods? In the past 20 days, because the Lin family has gone to buy colored threads several times, Wang Pa has already become familiar with the Lin family, and has made her preferences clear. When old Lin died, with Wang Po's ideas and tactics, the fifth brother took down that beautiful little lady with ease. Zhang Wu drank all the wine in his glass and said, well done. When we take this Qingshui Street from the group of losers in the Yin Fu sect, Ma Xiong, you will be the leader of Qingshui Street. Ma Xiong immediately arched his hand and said, thank you, Brother Wu. That beautiful little lady will definitely not escape Brother Wu's palm. Zhang Wu grinned. Of course, the beautiful appearance of the Lin family's young lady made people's hearts itch. However, my patient calculation of her was not just for her beauty. How could she be just a leader of the Black Tiger Gang if such a powerful young lady could get started with her? As for Lin Xuankong, that useless old man with no strength or background, why does he deserve to have such a little lady? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Shouyuan will exhaust the third wisp of qi and blood. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Shouyuan will exhaust the third wisp of qi and blood. At the intersection of Linshui Street, Lin Xuankong carried a burden and walked through the crowd. As he walked, he carefully observed the situation around him. Although he was not entirely certain whether Ma Xiong and Zhang Wu were going to deal with him, he hardly relaxed for a moment as he walked back from the vicinity of the inner city. It's not that he's too cautious, but after so many days of continuous cultivation, there's a chance for him to get started with the Songhe skill. If he capsizes in the sewer at this time, it's a big injustice. At this moment, pedestrians are weaving along both sides of the road. There was a wealthy young master dressed in splendid attire and wearing brocade boots, leisurely walking with his servants. There are also beggars with tattered clothes, carrying a broken bowl and dirty faces, bowing down on the roadside to beg. However, it is rare to see female relatives walking on the street. Occasionally, 2 or 3 of them are also sitting in small sedan chairs. As summer has always been, except for a few festive days, most women do not leave one door, do not walk two doors, and rarely show their heads. What made Lin Xuankong feel a little relaxed was the occasional Qingshan Taoist passing by the roadside. As far as he knows, these Taoists all come from the Yin Fu sect. The Yin Fu sect and the Black Tiger Gang have always been at odds. In the territory of the Yin Fu sect, the people of the Black Tiger Gang should not have taken action to kill in public. Lin Xuankong chose this street to go home precisely because of this. Lin Xuankong felt his stomach after walking for more than an hour. As the body became stronger and stronger, it consumed more and more. I had 5 or 6 pancakes in the morning, but now it's not even noon and I'm actually hungry. He walked towards a vendor selling leek pies on the roadside. Last time he passed by Linshui Street, Lin Xuankong was ruthless, gritted his teeth, and bought a few leek pies, intending to improve the food. As a result, when I got home, my little lady took a few bites and killed all the chive pies. The little lady, like me, loves to eat chive pies. Recalling the scene when Li Xiaolan was still unsatisfied after finishing the pie and ate the chopped chives on her fingers with her little tongue, a smile couldn't help but appear on the corner of Lin Xuankong's mouth. In the blink of an eye, he sighed inwardly again. Living with himself was actually a hardship for that snack guy. Here are 6 pies. Lin Xuankong gritted his teeth and took out 6 copper coins from his waist, placing them on the table. Okay. The old man who made the pies quickly wrapped 6 pies in oil paper and handed them over. Lin Xuankong was about to reach out to pick it up, but suddenly a daze arose and the scenery in front of him spun around. He was startled in his heart and shook his hand, pressing it onto the table, which prevented him from falling to the ground on the spot. After a few breaths, the vague feeling of 5 senses gradually dissipated. Lin Xuankong's eyebrows furrowed as he gradually returned to normal. This premonition of the end of his lifespan and this inexplicable trance became more and more frequent. Previously, it only appeared a few times in the evening, but now it's not even noon when it starts to appear. The voice of the old man next to the pie was a bit panicked. Brother, are you okay? It's okay, but I'm a little hungry. Lin Xuankong took a deep breath, took the pie, and walked toward Wudongli. The old man selling pies looked at Lin Xuankong's back and couldn't help but shake his head. The Lin family elder brother who sells pancakes saw it a few days ago, carrying dozens of pounds of pancakes and still able to walk with the wind. Why did he almost fall today for no reason? I heard he married a little daughter. In law, isn't it? With a knife on the tip of the letter, color, dot. Zhiya, pushing open the wooden door and entering the wooden building, Lin Xuankong finally breathed a sigh of relief. He placed the burden on the side of the door, touched the still warm pie in his arms, and was about to call out the foodie to come down and indulge, but his gaze couldn't help but fall on the wooden table outside. On the wooden table, there is a food box and a dozen dim sum wrapped in craft paper. The craft paper is pasted with red paper and 3 characters. Gu Hifang. Guifang is the most famous dim sum shop in Day's mansion. It is said that it has been open for more than 200 years. The cheapest dim sum from Guifang also costs tens of yuan and a dozen liang. Only the distinguished people in the inner city can afford it. I'm afraid it will cost 10 liang silver to buy these on the table. Who would send such expensive dim sum? Lin Xuankong was somewhat surprised. The predecessor did not have relatives who could afford Guifang dim sum. He walked over, looked at the dim sum, and then opened the food box. The aroma immediately hit the nose, and on the first layer of the food box lay a glutinous pork elbow stewed, which was clearly carefully cooked by a skilled chef. On the lower floors, there are also some delicious dishes with a perfect combination of color, aroma, and taste, which ordinary people in Day's prefecture cannot taste once in their lifetime. Lin Xuankong's face was more surprised. It was both dim sum and delicious food, no stealing. A crisp voice sounded from behind. Lin Xuankong turned his head and it was indeed Li Xiaolan standing silently behind him once again. Did you buy these? Lin Xuankong looked at the delicious food and dim sum on the table, and then felt the oil paper bag in his arms. How can I buy such expensive dim sum? Li Xiaolan shook her head. She was holding a piece of dim sum with her slender fingers, and there were some pieces of dim sum stuck to her mouth. These dim sum were bought for me by the eldest lady. That food box was sent over by Wang Pe from the ready-to-wear shop, who said she was entertaining guests at home and ordered too many dishes, so she brought over a box. That Wang Pe is a bit strange. She actually knows my taste quite well. Miss Huang and Li Xiaolan have been together since childhood, and it is normal for them to have a deep relationship as masters and servants. How could Wang Pe be so kind? Lin Xuankong asked strangely. She said I embroidered those handkerchiefs and sold them to her, which were very popular among the women in the inner city and made her a lot of money. How about that? I'm amazing. Li Xiaolan took a bite of dim sum and was quite proud. Lin Xuankong couldn't help but laugh as he looked at the young lady's proud expression. Amazing, young lady is both civil and military, of course she is. Just thinking of the pie specially bought for her in his arms, he felt a bit dejected, so he walked towards his room and said, I'm a bit tired. Come in and lie down for a while. I'm afraid the delicacies in that food box can be exchanged for thousands of pies. He pushed open the wooden door, thinking in his heart. Stop. Li Xiaolan's voice suddenly tightened. Lin Xuankong was taken aback for a moment, but before he could react, he saw Li Xiaolan approaching him. His delicate little nose sniffed at his chest before raising his eyebrows. This is the taste of chive pie. You bought chive pie and actually want to eat it alone in your own house. Immediately after, Lin Xuankong felt his chest empty, and the oil paper bag in his arms had already been carried out by Li Xiaolan. Li Xiaolan pinched the oil paper bun and her face turned unpleasant. Surprisingly, there are still 6 leek pies. You actually want to swallow 6 alone. Humph, it's all mine. After finishing speaking, she grabbed the oiled paper packet and walked upstairs. After a few steps, she proudly shook the oiled paper packet in her hand and said, Look at the portion of your hard work and 6 chive pies. The vegetables in the food box belong to you. Lin Xuankong looked surprised. Don't even leave me a leek pie. He turned his head to look at the food box on the table, couldn't help but shake his head a little, and laughed. This little lady from home, this is the most sumptuous meal I've had since traveling. Usually, it's either pancakes or pickled vegetables, or sorghum noodles and steamed buns paired with vegetables. Occasionally, I can buy half a pound of pork. My little lady is skilled at embroidering flowers, and she has benefited from it, but it has actually made my stomach cheaper. After eliminating half of the pig elbow, half of the oil-braised shrimp, and a few pancakes, Lin Xuankong drank 2 bowls of soup to fill the gaps. He patted his slightly bulging stomach and returned to his room. The food was delicious. Unfortunately, due to old age, not only were there many missing teeth in my mouth, but the only few teeth were also so big that even the soft and glutinous pork elbow could be filled. I don't know if there will be a chance to grow a good tooth again after practicing Songhe Yanshou Gong to a higher level. This kind of pine and crane longevity skill can even extend the longevity element. When refined to a high depth, it should not be a problem to grow a pair of dazzling white teeth. Thinking so in his heart, Lin Xuankong suddenly felt a tightness in his chest, a suffocating sensation surged up, and he quickly leaned against the bed, afraid to move any further. After a few tens of breaths, the extremely suffocating feeling disappeared, and Lin Xuankong felt lingering palpitations. This kind of omen of the end of lifespan is becoming more and more frequent. You must hold on. As long as you get through today, you will have the opportunity to learn Songhe Gong tomorrow. If you fail at this time, you will not be willing to accept it. After thinking for a moment, he simply stretched out the blanket and an old man crawled into the bed. This afternoon and evening, I just lay down and didn't go anywhere to save myself from accidentally getting a cerebral hemorrhage after going out. In a daze, he fell asleep. In the middle, Li Xiaolan came over and saw him sleeping soundly, so she didn't ask him to get up for dinner. Bang 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 bang, be careful to keep warm when the weather is cold and the earth is freezing. At 4 o'clock, the sound of the watchman's emotions rang not far from the street. Lying in bed, Lin Xuankong let out a muffled groan and, in extreme distress, regained consciousness. The suffocating feeling, like someone sealing his mouth and nose with cement, made his eyes constantly darken. He opened his mouth and breathed hard, but couldn't feel any relief. After several tens of breaths, just as Lin Xuankong was about to faint, that feeling finally eased. At this moment, Lin Xuankong was already sweating all over, his face turned pale, and his lips were a bit purple. After a moment of relaxation, Lin Xuankong, who was shivering all over, dared not hesitate. He put on a piece of clothing and sat upright by the bed, carefully practicing the mind and breathing techniques of the Songhe Yanshou Gong. After the first operation of the Songhe longevity extension technique, there was not much difference from before. The second round of Songhe longevity extending technique had just begun to operate, and a hint of joy suddenly appeared in Lin Xuankong's slightly closed eyes. He sensed that a third wave of pine and crane shedding qi and blood appeared in his body. At first, this qi and blood was still somewhat weak, but with the operation of the mind method, this qi and blood gradually took shape. It gradually merged with the previous two streams of extraordinary qi and blood, becoming quite strong, and then carried an extremely vigorous vitality, flying rapidly in every flesh and blood of his body, deeply nourishing the dark wounds and chronic diseases in his body. He guided the qi and blood of the pine and crane to flow throughout his body, and then he suddenly realized that the flesh and blood of his body were trembling slightly, constantly changing and pushing towards a limit. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Awkward Little Lady. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Awkward Little Lady. Half an hour later, Lin Xuankong slowly opened his eyes while practicing, feeling refreshed all over. It's as if my previous self was constantly carrying a heavy burden of hundreds of pounds, and now the burden has suddenly been lifted off. This relaxed feeling made Lin Xuankong very comfortable. He stood up by the bed, wanting to move around. Unexpectedly, with just a slight increase in strength from his legs, his body suddenly jumped up nearly 3 feet, as if suddenly losing weight. He was surprised and quickly adjusted his body posture, finally landing firmly in place. How could the strength of one's own legs become so great? His face was full of surprise. After a little contemplation, he reached out and grabbed the side of the wooden bed. The solid wood old bed, along with the bedding on it, weighed about 200 pounds. At this moment, when he grabbed it, the wooden bed was lifted flat by him with one hand. I feel so relaxed. Lin Xuankong looked surprised. After the convergence of the 3 strands of pine and crane's extraordinary qi and blood, the effect of nourishing the body for the first time is surprisingly amazing. A few days ago, although my strength had approached the limit of an ordinary person, it was far from being compared to now, let alone lifting a heavy solid wood bed flat with one hand. He controlled his internal qi and blood, and after firmly putting down the wooden bed, he focused his attention on the few lines of big characters in his mind. Lin Xuankong. The remaining longevity of 1168 days. Destiny. Old and healthy, destiny first talent. Aging and becoming refined, age 59, cultivation speed increased by 50 times realm. Early stage of transformation extraordinary qi and blood. 168/100000 skill. Pine and crane longevity extension skill. First glimpse of the path January 4000. Next, for golden purple characters sparkle with light, and the font of Songhe Gong changes. Songhe Yanshou Gong. First glimpse of the path 1 of 80. Lin Xuankong felt many changes and let out a comfortable sigh. The lifespan of Shouyuan has increased from just 3 days to 1168 days. This pine and crane life extending skill is truly divine, not just an ordinary martial art. After entering the skill, it can indeed extend lifespan for 3 years. 1168 days, which is over 300 times more than the previous short 3-day lifespan. In addition, there is an additional realm display in the destiny. The early stage of transforming into the mortal realm. At the same time as prolonging one's lifespan, one has also broken through and become a true transmigrant cultivator, although there was still some distance between Zhang Wu, the leader of the Black Tiger gang in the early stages of the first layer. He was countless times stronger than Ma Xiong, who was tracking him. Double happiness loomed over Lin Xuankong, and infinite hope floated in his heart. I don't know how much lifespan can be increased by the next level of Songhe Yanshou Gong. It will take 5 or 8 years anyway. With the destiny of being old and strong, I have many more opportunities to survive in this world. Moreover, I have become a truly admired martial artist so quickly. If I continue to practice day by day, how far will I grow? In a moment of joy, Lin Xuankong walked to the window and looked into the backyard. At this point, spring rain had already begun outside, and in the continuous night rain, the scenery was a bit blurry. He could vaguely see a dying old willow tree changing quietly under the spring rain, 10 steps away from the window. Its almost withered trunk had already sprouted a few tender green sprouts, which, although weak, were full of vitality. Lin Xuankong smiled at the corner of his mouth. A few days ago, he had planned to cut down this old willow tree as firewood, but now it seems that he should give it a chance to survive. After taking a few breaths of fresh air by the window, Lin Xuankong sat back by the bed. He was a little excited at the moment, not drowsy. He was waiting to see if he would still experience that kind of mental confusion, chest tightness, and suffocation after entering the Songhe skill and increasing his lifespan. For shifts past, 5 o'clock has passed, the night rain stops, the eastern sky gradually revealed a white fish belly. With the passage of time, the frequent occurrences of mental confusion and suffocation at night never appeared, and Lin Xuankong finally let go. He stood up, jumped out of bed, and walked briskly to the outside. After washing his face, he walked upstairs with a happy expression on his face, ready to tell the young lady the good news of his entry into Songhe Gong. To his surprise, after knocking on the door a few times, there was no response coming from inside the wooden house on the second floor. Lin Xuankong leaned his ear against the wooden door and listened for a while, only to find that there was no movement inside the cabin. He pushed the door open and entered, only to see the wooden bed on the second floor, with neatly stacked bedding and a faint fragrance wafting in the room, but Li Xiaolan was not inside. Lin Xuankong frowned. If Xiaolan had to leave, she would definitely say hello to herself. At this time, she couldn't go to the pharmacy to get medicine. After thinking for a moment, he ran to the back window and looked out, then his face couldn't help but change. Last night, it rained for about 3 hours. In the small backyard of the wooden building, there was already a puddle that was 1 zhang square and half a foot deep. At this moment, Li Xiaolan, dressed in a green shirt, was standing on the water surface. Amazingly, she stood still on the water surface, with a slight depression where she landed. However, she never fell into the water, and there was no trace of water on her embroidered shoes. In the morning light, the faint water vapor formed a white mist, swirling around her. This scene seemed like a fairy tale. Lin Xuankong was secretly shocked. The young lady is clearly practicing, but what level of realm is her? During her peaceful cultivation, she was able to step on the water without sinking, which is beyond the reach of an ordinary cultivator. Moreover, such a stunning person, standing neutral on the surface of the water amidst the swirling white mist, is simply breathtaking. If she shouts loudly, would she be shocked to fall into the water? With some chaotic thoughts swirling in his mind, he went downstairs and entered the backyard, only to find that the beauty on the water had disappeared. Immediately afterwards, Li Xiaolan's voice rang out from behind, "You have broken through to the level of transformation. Why do you always like to greet others behind their backs?" Lin Xuankong's face was speechless. Quickly, a smile appeared on his face again. He had already entered the early stage of transforming into the mortal realm in just 30 days. The little lady would be surprised to know now. Lin Xuankong turned his head, and his voice was filled with some joy and a hint of pride. It was all taught well by the little lady. Li Xiaolan listened to the joy and pride in his voice, and her eyes turned sideways at him. This kind of cultivation speed is barely decent, it's almost catching up with the speed of my original practice of pine crane life extending skill. Lin Xuankong's expression paused, almost catching up with the little lady's cultivation speed. I have a 50 times cultivation speed bonus myself. Is the young lady's talent so strong? Seeing Lin Xuankong staring at her in a daze, Li Xiaolan's surface looked light and serene, her fair little hands, hidden in her long sleeves, awkwardly rubbed against each other. In those beautiful embroidered shoes, the toes also awkwardly grasped the soles of the shoes. You're so angry. Little old man Xiangong, you have transformed into a mortal realm so quickly. Ordinary martial artists may need to cultivate for 6 or 7 years before they can transform into a mortal realm. Even if they were to advance to the first realm, it would have taken 6 or 7 months. What an embarrassment. Can he see that I'm bragging? Definitely not, I'm bragging so naturally, he shouldn't see me bragging. After awkwardly rubbing her fair little hands a few times, she coughed and decisively changed the topic. Since Songhe Gong has already entered the beginner level and advanced to the level of transformation, relying solely on mental and breathing techniques will definitely slow down the cultivation progress. You need to start practicing Cangsong forging body piles, and also combine them with some more nourishing medicines to lay a good foundation in the early stage of transforming into a mortal. Also, it's time for you to cultivate the spirit crane finger used for killing and attacking. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Cangsong Forged Pile and Linghe One Finger. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 7 Cangsong Forged Pile and Linghe One Finger. Cangsong Forged Pile. Linghe Ji. Lin Xuankong immediately arched his hand and said, "Please teach me, young lady." From surprise and embarrassment, Li Xiaolan, who had finally regained her composure, nodded slightly. Then she moved her body and re-demonstrated the Cangsong forging pile that had been demonstrated before. At this moment, the light fog in the courtyard had not yet dissipated. As Li Xiaolan explained and her body changed, the light white fog moved with her, and those movements looked extremely pleasing. Lin Xuankong held his breath and focused, not daring to overlook any detail, carefully observing every movement of her. After a moment, Li Xiaolan's movements changed from the vigorous and imposing Cangsong forging pile to the agile and sharp Linghe finger. The key to martial arts is to use the spirit and strength as the body. If you only imitate the image model, even if the external body is similar but the internal strength is lacking, it will be difficult to deal with a big enemy with just its surface. You must remember. The spirit of a crane, using weakness to counter strength, is like a crane attacking rice with sharpness, winning by surprise, to break through evil with secrecy, like a crane's wings trembling in the water, it falls at a touch, showcasing the ultimate divine beauty. This is the designated central plains, this is Linghe playing in the water, this is the white crane with bright wings, this is fishing for the moon from the bottom of the water, this is searching for snakes by plucking grass. This is the spirit crane kick fight. After a dazzling demonstration of the spirit crane fingers that dazzled Lin Xuankong, Li Xiaolan held her breath as she looked at Lin Xuankong's clearly dazed expression, her mouth curling up uncontrollably. Then she raised her fingers together and lightly tapped on a blue stone that was over half a person tall in the courtyard. With a soft hiss, despite not seeing how much strength she exerted, her fingers pierced through the hard and dense blue stone. After pulling them out, a several-inch deep hole suddenly appeared. Lin Xuankong looked at the blue stone cave with a surprised and envious expression on his face. Li Xiaolan is very satisfied with the expression on the little old man in front of her. Humph, it makes you also feel the feeling of being hit. By the time you reach the level of integration and mastery in the cultivation of Songhe Gong, you should have reached a complete level of transformation. At that time, the muscles and skin of your arms will be quenched and refined, triggering the transformation of qi and blood. Using this move to designate the central planes, there will also be such a small power. At that time, for example, Zhang Wu from the Black Tiger Gang, if he points at you, he will definitely die on the spot. Of course, the realm of integration is even more profound and difficult to refine, no more than the entry-level realm. You may need to practice for 3 or 4 years, perhaps it will take 6 or 7 years of cultivation. In short, remember to practice 2 rounds of mind techniques, 1 round of forging body piles, and spirit crane fingers every day. As long as you don't slack off, there will be hope to achieve it. After listening to the young lady finish speaking, Lin Xuankong nodded repeatedly. Li Xiaolan took out another booklet from her pocket and said, I have already transcribed the movements and tricks of the Cangsong pile and the Linghe finger. Take them and have a look. If you have any doubts, remember to buy the freshly baked chive pie and ask me for advice. When it comes to leek pies, her tone intensifies a bit. Also, the early stage of transforming into a mortal is the most crucial time for cultivators to establish their foundation. Recently, the business of selling pancakes to make money can be put aside. You can practice your mind and breathing techniques at night, and take time to practice stake technique and spirit crane finger. During the day after speaking, she carried her fair little hands behind her and walked away gracefully. Lin Xuankong pinched the booklet in his hand and said a sincere thank you. Then, his eyes were slightly burning as he looked at the finger hole on the blue stone, a small power that pierces through blue stones. I feel like the little lady just put in a little more effort, and I'm afraid her entire arm can pierce into the blue stone. This kind of power cannot be achieved with handguns or AKs from previous lifetimes. At least Barrett's sniper is needed. If this is pointed at someone else, it can probably be stabbed from the head to the heel. The key is that as long as the Songhe Gong is cultivated to a comprehensive and perfect level of transformation, the spirit crane finger can possess this small power. Even against the late-stage leader Zhang Wu of transformation, it can be fatal with just one finger. According to the cultivation speed that increases by 50 times, shouldn't it take a long time? I don't think it will take 6, 7, 8, or 9 years as the little lady said. With a longing in his heart, Lin Xuankong recalled the finger and pile techniques that the young lady had practiced before, and carefully flipped through the exquisite booklet drawn by the young lady. After a burn of incense, Lin Xuankong placed the booklet in his arms and, following the movements of the Cangsong forging pile, put on a posture. The first action, called Cangsong breaking through the air, requires landing on the right leg, squatting halfway, lifting the left leg and pointing straight to the front and upper part, bending both arms forward and backward, and the body's molting qi and blood must follow a strange route. These movements, when performed by the young lady, are easy, comfortable, and full of beauty. However, they are extremely difficult to imitate and consume a lot of qi, blood, and physical energy. If it weren't for Lin Xuankong, who has now entered a stage of transformation and has undergone a transformation of his flesh and blood, possessing power far beyond that of an ordinary person, he might not even be able to hold on to half a pillar of incense time for the first action. After more than an hour had passed, Lin Xuankong, who imitated 70% or 80% of the way, completed 12 movements. At this point, he was already sweating through his clothes, but the cotton jacket he was wearing in early spring was actually soaked through. It can be imagined that for over an hour, these 12 pile movements had consumed him a lot of physical strength and blood. He sat next to the old willow tree in the courtyard, rested for a while, and waited for Tuofan's qi and blood to nourish all his muscles. After his physical strength slightly recovered, he practiced the spirit crane finger again. However, as it is the first time practicing the spirit crane finger, compared with Li Xiaolan's flying crane fingering, Lin Xuankong's one-stop fingering, the temperature is obviously much worse. That difference is roughly equivalent to the difference between raw pork with fur and delicious stewed pork ball in brown sauce. However, Lin Xuankong showed no signs of discouragement. During his cultivation, he carefully sensed every movement, occasionally recalling the exercises of the little lady, or flipping through a booklet. Gradually, many omissions and mistakes in his movements were keenly captured by him, and a large number of new insights emerged in his mind. Songhe Yanshou Gong. First glimpse of the path 2 out of 80, after a while, Lin Xuankong, who was resting by the willow tree, showed a happy expression on his face. With so many new insights, after a day of cultivation and complete recovery, his body should have a significant change in the green pine stump and spirit crane finger tomorrow. The second floor of an old wooden building, Li Xiaolan looked at Lin Xuankong resting by the old willow tree. Although he may be considered a genius, he is truly a pure martial arts enthusiast who knows how to cultivate diligently. Alas, I haven't eaten breakfast yet. Although I haven't let you touch me, I am your wife. I wonder if she will be hungry. Practicing martial arts is not a day's work. Do you still want to integrate and connect within a month after entering the field? Gulu gulu, she frowned and rubbed her rumbling belly, then she looked at the 100 taels of silver on the table. The 100 taels of silver lent to her by the young lady may seem quite substantial, but when it comes to preparing the 9 transformation strong qi soup that can greatly nourish qi and blood, only 30 portions can be produced. If one cultivates alone, it can take about 20 days. However, he has now entered the early stage of transforming into the mortal realm, which is the most important period for martial arts cultivation. If we need to help him replenish his qi and blood for 2 people, it will only take more than 10 days. Moreover, the borrowed silver always needs to be repaid, and we need to find ways to earn more money. Just embroidery and selling pancakes are definitely not enough. With my own strength, if I go hunting monsters, I will definitely earn more money quickly. However, in order to go out of the city to hunt monsters and earn silver, one must prepare exorcism armor. The entire day's prefecture, apart from the official family, has only the Huang family, Feng family, Guo family, as well as the Black Tiger sect, Yin Fu sect, Spirit Snake sect, and so on, equipped with anti-evil armor. How can I get the exorcism armor? Li Xiaolan frowned and pondered. After a moment, Lin Xuankong's voice came from downstairs. The food is ready. This martial fool finally remembered to eat. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Divine Destiny. Needle on the Tail of a Wasp. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Divine Destiny. Needle on the tail of a wasp. In a blink of an eye, it had already been about 10 days. On this day, approaching noon, after practicing the Cangsong pill and Linghe finger, Lin Xuankong finished drinking the medicinal soup brought by Li Xiaolan and sat quietly by the bed, practicing his mind technique. These days, his movements on the pine stump have become extremely standard, with a hint of vigor and grandeur. Although not as pleasing as the movements of the young lady, the effect of refining tendons and flesh has become stronger and stronger. In terms of the Linghe finger, he is already quite familiar with his tricks. Compared with the gesture of the little lady, the difference is no longer raw pork with fur and stewed pork ball in brown sauce, but about half-cooked pork and stewed pork ball in brown sauce. Half an hour later, after completing his cultivation, Lin Xuankong opened his eyes and looked at the empty medicine bowl on the table. The medicine soup made by my own young lady is so magical. The nourishing effect of this medicine soup on qi and blood is more than 10 times stronger than the medicine soup that I drank before. He looked at the qi and blood displayed in his destiny. Extraordinary qi and blood. 210/100000. According to the theory, one should consume a lot of qi and blood in their daily practice of forging body skills, but after these 10 days of cultivation, every time I take the medicinal soup, I can replenish a lot of qi and blood. Not only will the consumed qi and blood be quickly replenished, but even after daily cultivation, there is still some left, to the extent that I have now accumulated a full 210 points. Additionally, normally, the amount of qi and blood that can be accommodated in one's own body's flesh and blood should only be around 30 to 40 points. With this strong and healthy destiny, one should have the ability to store excess qi and blood, which is truly amazing. Of course, being able to save so much qi and blood all depends on the little lady's medicinal soup. If it weren't for that, let alone accumulating qi and blood, I might not be able to even practice 1 round of Cangsong piles a day. I just don't know how to prepare this medicinal soup and what is the value of the medicinal herbs. As an old man, I haven't brought much good change to the little lady's life, but I eat her medicinal soup every day. However, as a family, there shouldn't be any need to talk about 2 families. Just as the thought of being an old man with a soft meal arose in my heart, a knocking sound suddenly came from the outer door. Pop 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 pop, is Xiaolan at home? A warm and kind woman's voice rang out. Lin Xuankong was somewhat surprised. Since getting married, the young lady has hardly interacted with the young ladies and sister-in-law on the street except for going out to pick medicine and buy handkerchiefs and silk thread. How could anyone come specifically to find her? The sound of footsteps echoed from the stairs and soon arrived at the entrance. Li Xiaolan's crisp voice came, "Aunt Wang, why are you free to come to my house today?" "Mrs. Wang, Mrs. Wang." Lin Xuankong's eyes twitched slightly. The little lady would embroider some flower handkerchiefs every day and sell them to Wang Pa at the ready-to-wear shop. This Wang Po's martial arts cultivation is not particularly high, it is said to be on the level of transformation. However, she is versatile and has some management skills. She has opened 8 ready-to-wear shops, and one of them has gone to the inner city. Overall, this Wang Pa can also be considered a famous figure. In the city of Day's prefecture, there may be more than half of the people who know about her Wang Ji garment shop. Of course it's a good thing. Here, this is the dried jujube from Guhafang. When I passed by Guhafang, I bought a few pounds and gave you 2 pounds to satisfy my craving. Wang Po's voice was filled with a smile. Li Xiaolan welcomed Wang Pa into the outer room and said, "Why is Mrs. Wang so polite? You sit down first, and I'll pour you a glass of water." Wang Pa looked around and said, "Isn't Brother Lin at home?" Li Xiaolan replied, "He's a bit tired. He went to the house to sleep." Wang Pa nodded and said, "Young lady, I came here to ask for something. In the past few days, several guests have come to the shop to inquire about embroidered handkerchiefs, but unfortunately, you haven't sent any more handkerchiefs these days. Those guests, who are not short of money, have recognized the flower handkerchief you embroidered and said they want to order some, 1 silver or 2. It's also my fault for being greedy for a moment and accepting it all." Li Xiaolan already had other plans on how to make money. After hearing what Wang Pa said, she hesitated a bit. She could embroider several pieces a day for 1 or 2 silver in a handkerchief. Wang Pa continued, "Those are a few rare wealthy customers. If the young lady embroiders 50 pieces, it will be 50 taels." She sighed and said, "Unfortunately, my eyes are blurred now. When I was young, the flower handkerchief I embroidered was also famous in Ozawa Prefecture. Of course, it definitely couldn't compare to the little lady's skill of embroidering flowers that can attract butterflies and embroidering grass that can make dew." Inside, Lin Xuankong, who was listening to the two of them talking, was somewhat surprised. A handkerchief was almost 1 or 2. Is my young lady's craftsmanship so good? 1 or 2 silver coins, it may take ordinary people a month to earn the wealthy and powerful women in Day's prefecture. They really don't take money as money. He touched his waist and took out a handkerchief that the little lady had given him a few days ago. This handkerchief was used by him to blow his nose and something, and it had been used for many days. Because I clean it every day, the color has already faded a bit, but I can still see the peonies embroidered on it clearly. The peonies have delicate and lifelike stitches. At this moment, Li Xiaolan, who was outside, had already agreed to help Wang Pa embroider a handkerchief, and the two started chatting. "Oh my, the little lady is such a diligent and cheerful person. Although this room is a bit old, it is very tidy. The table is also well wiped, and the flies fall down. I'm afraid an old man will fall into bed." Wang Pa smiled. Li Xiaolan felt a bit embarrassed when she praised her so much. Wang Pa continued, "It's a pity that those people from the Huang family don't know what to do. They even kicked the little lady out and forced her to marry a poor old man who was half buried in the ground. Even a widow of 60 years old might not be interested in such a poor old man. Oh, look at my mouth." Li Xiaolan was originally planning to pour her a glass of water, but upon hearing her say so, she frowned and set the kettle aside. Wang politely slapped herself on the mouth and whispered, "It's all my fault." Which pot doesn't open and which pot doesn't open? Don't worry, little lady. I know how to look, and I have a very attractive face. I will definitely have good luck in the future and meet a good person. After speaking, she secretly glanced at Li Xiaolan and stood up, saying, all right, I should go back too. Little lady, remember to embroider those handkerchiefs for me as soon as possible, and it's best to send a few every day. After Wang Po left, Li Xiaolan frowned and went upstairs. Lin Xuankong, who was inside, also frowned. It's not a big deal for this Wang Po to come and do business, but this old man's mouth is too poisonous. It's really like getting a needle on a wasp's tail. What does it mean to be half buried? Even a 60-year-old widow wouldn't look up to it. What is fortune turning in meeting a good person? Why don't you act like a mediator in front of me? If it weren't for the old lady walking fast, I would have slapped her a few times. Walking outside, Lin Xuankong frowned and looked towards the second floor, unsure of what his own young lady was thinking at the moment the sound of a slap on the door rang out. Lin Xuankong's face darkened and he walked quickly towards the wooden door. Did the old guy come back? Just give her a lesson. Opening the door, it turned out to be Xiaohu, the son of Li Dahu's neighbor. Lin Xuankong's expression softened slightly and he let little tiger in. Little greedy cat came early, I haven't had time to cook today. Xiaohu chuckled and scratched his head. He closed the wooden door and sat down at the table on his own. Uncle Lin, you underestimate me, Xiaohu. Am I someone who grasps food? I call it, sharing blessings together. He looked upstairs and whispered, Uncle Lin, why did that Wang Po come over just now? What did she do? Lin Xuankong's face darkened slightly as he mentioned Wang Po. That old lady, come over and have your aunt embroider some handkerchiefs. Xiaohu was taken aback and whispered, Uncle Lin, it's best not to let little auntie go to Wang Ji's ready-to-wear shop in the future. That Wang Po is not a good person. She appears to run a ready-to-wear shop and occasionally does good deeds, but in fact, she has done a lot of evil things secretly. Lin Xuankong was a bit surprised. I don't think she's a good person either, it's just that you said she did a lot of bad things. Xiaohu said, it's a few little beggars I know. They told me a few days ago that they were the little ladies who often work for Wang Ji's ready-to-wear shop. They either went missing, were taken to brothels and railings, or their families were ruined. Although they didn't see Wang Po do it with their own eyes, how could the situation be so coincidental? Unfortunately, the little ladies who work for her family have had an accident. Lin Xuankong secretly thought to himself that his young lady's strength was unfathomable, and he was not afraid of Wang Po's attack on her. However, it was easy to dodge a visible spear and difficult to defend against a hidden arrow. Moreover, if Wang Po were to speak ill of him in the young lady's ear all day long, it would be too disgusting. I just don't know what my own little lady thinks. Rubbing little tiger's messy hair, Lin Xuankong said, okay, I got it. After Xiaohu left, Lin Xuankong sat at the table, pondering how to tell his wife. Suddenly, Li Xiaolan's crisp voice rang out beside him, what are you thinking? I'm a bit hungry. Lin Xuankong turned his head to look at Li Xiaolan and said, you should have heard what Xiaohu said about that Wang Po. Xiaohu has known me for more than 10 years, so he definitely won't deceive me. Li Xiaolan frowned and said, even if it weren't for what Xiaohu said, I wouldn't have planned to embroider a handkerchief for her. Humph, how can someone slander my Li Xiaolan's husband? Lin Xuankong felt a bit sweet when he heard her say that. When he looked at Li Xiaolan again, he felt that he liked her more and more. Such a lovely lady must be raised as fair and chubby. He smiled and said, okay, that's settled. I'll cook for the lady right away. Upon hearing the sweet voice of the lady, Li Xiaolan's cheeks turned slightly red. She lowered her head and remained silent for a moment before snorting again, don't hit the snake with the stick. I can call you husband, but you can't call me lady without outsiders present. Lin Xuankong. Little lady, you still have thin skin. In the future, I will definitely be a person under the covers, why be so open-minded? He was about to turn around and go to the kitchen, Li Xiaolan stopped him again and said, come and sit down first. I have an important matter to tell you. Lin Xuankong frowned and said with a dissatisfied expression, there's nothing in this world that's more important than my little lady eating. Li Xiaolan couldn't help but laugh when she saw his serious nonsense. There's really something important, she said after speaking. He felt a shimmering walnut-sized bead at his waist pouch and said, have you ever seen this kind of bead? Lin Xuankong was somewhat surprised, so he focused his attention on the bead, but suddenly I felt an inexplicable chill surge in my heart, and my whole body's sweat and hair spontaneously stood up, as if I had been stared at by some powerful and evil monster. How could this little bead make you feel like this? End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Manluo Demon Pearl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Manluo Demon Pearl. Lin Xuankong, whose chill surged, was filled with suspicion in his heart. Is this bead the important thing that the young lady said? Why does this bead give oneself such a strong sense of oppression in crisis? Li Xiaolan looked at his nervous expression and couldn't help but smile with her eyes curved. You must have never seen this before. This type of bead is called a demon bead, which is made by condensing a powerful demon after being killed. However, the demon bead in my hand has been processed by a special refining method, and the demonic energy has dissipated by more than 99%. Therefore, even cultivators on the first level of transformation can use it without worrying about being assimilated by the demonic power. Is this the demon bead formed by the monster after its death? Lin Xuankong was taken aback for a moment. Of course, he had heard of monsters. Demons often appeared outside the city of Day's mansion and devoured people, leaving ordinary people powerless to resist. In the Great Xia dynasty, there were a large number of cultivators guarding various prefectures, cities, and towns, so they were able to avoid being ravaged by monsters. As for the demon beads, it is said that only very powerful monsters have a very low chance of condensing them after being killed. Ordinary monsters are already extremely terrifying. How could it be so easy to kill very powerful monsters and obtain demon beads? So, the number of demon beads is quite rare, and in addition, demon beads have many benefits. It is said that each demon bead is valuable. My predecessor only occasionally heard of the ethereal legend about the demon pearl on the streets and alleys. How could I possibly have seen such a precious thing? The value of this demon bead may exceed 100,000 pancakes. My little lady has such a precious demon pearl. Is she already strong enough to kill powerful demons? Lin Xuankong looked puzzled. My bead is called the Manluo Demon Pearl, which is quite mysterious. As long as it stimulates qi and blood to be infused into it, it can have an effect. Recently, it has been handed over to you for use. In case you encounter a single opponent, purging it will definitely ensure your safety. Unless the opponent is an expert in the 6th level of transformation, it is absolutely impossible to break the effect of this bead. After Li Xiaolan finished speaking, she handed the bead to Lin Xuankong. Lin Xuankong's face showed an unexpected expression and he said, please keep me safe. The young lady is so strong that there is no danger in being with you. No, are you leaving here? Li Xiaolan placed the pearl by his hand and gently bit her lips, saying, I really need to leave for a period of time, fast as 10 days, slow as half a month. So, that's why I handed you this bead. Although you have already transformed into an early stage and your strength far exceeds that of an ordinary cultivator, however, there are many experts in Day's Mansion City. In case of any unexpected situation, this bead can also save your life. In addition, this is over 30 taels of silver, and there is also a formula for Jiuzhuan Ichi Tang, which has detailed instructions on how to prepare and how to boil it. The first layer of transformation is an important period for cultivators to establish their foundation. These more than 30 taels of silver can be used to buy medicinal herbs, which can support your 10-day cultivation. After waiting for 10 days and a half, I'll probably be back. Can't we leave without leaving? Lin Xian's empty words reached his lips, but he didn't say them. The little lady's explanation is so detailed, it's obvious that she has already planned it. At this moment, his face couldn't help but darken as he spoke. Would it be dangerous for you to be alone? Can I go with you? Before leaving, the young lady gave herself such a precious demon pearl, along with silver and a recipe for nourishing qi soup. It's inevitable to worry. Seeing the sadness and reluctance on his face, Li Xiaolan couldn't help but feel a hint of tenderness in her eyes. Then she pretended to be graceful and waved her hand. All right, don't show any reluctance. What a big person. What danger can I face? There are thousands of cultivators in this day's mansion city, and apart from those old monsters and the old witch of the Huang family, there are not many who can compare with me. If I go out every time, I will encounter danger, and I'm afraid no one in Day's mansion will dare to leave the city. After finishing speaking, she got up and walked upstairs. At the staircase, she rubbed her stomach and said, "Let's cook. We're going out now, we want to eat to the fullest." Lin Xuankong frowned as he looked at her back and said, "Then I'll go buy a few pounds of bacon and a few more side dishes. It's okay if I can't bear to eat them normally. Now that you're going out, you always have to have a more sumptuous meal." Quickly, Lin Xuankong, who had agile feet, bought the vegetables and sat at the table to eat as usual. However, the atmosphere was different from the usual warmth. Lin Xuankong silently took a few bites of food and was about to speak. Li Xiaolan also lifted her head to look at him and said, "There is one more thing. Activating the Manluo demon pearl consumes a lot of qi and blood. A pair of 9 transformations qi tonifying tang can replenish qi and blood, and it can only stimulate it for 3 breaths at most. You are only a layer of transformation now, and your qi and blood are not abundant. Don't push it for too long, so as not to let the demonic pearl suck up your qi and blood and damage your foundation." Lin Xuankong said, "I have taken note." He secretly thought to himself, "I am completely different from the ordinary layer of Chufan. My destiny has the mysterious function of storing a large amount of qi and blood. My current qi and blood volume is estimated to be more than 10 times that of the ordinary layer of Chufan. Even if that Manluo demon pearl consumes a lot of qi and blood, you shouldn't have to worry about losing it yourself. It's just that this demon bead is priceless, so you can't take it out and use it casually to avoid being coveted." Li Xiaolan spoke again and said, "Remember to keep the demon pearl close to you for later use. The surface of Day's mansion is peaceful, but there are actually many disputes and conflicts between various gangs and martial arts families. When I'm not around, try to stay indoors as little as possible." Lin Xuankong nodded and continued to eat silently. "I originally had a lot of things I wanted to say to her, such as asking her to pay attention to safety, but before I could say it, she actually instructed me." After a moment, Li Xiaolan put down the dishes and said, "I will be back in about 10 days. Immediately after, the air around him shook slightly. Lin Xuankong quickly looked up, only to find that there were only neatly arranged bowls and chopsticks left in front of him, and his little lady had already disappeared. In the backyard of an old small building, Lin Xuankong had been practicing the spirit crane finger for nearly 2 hours, and it wasn't until he had exhausted more than half of his energy that he stopped. Both the pine crane heart technique and the tsang pine stake cannot exceed the number of cultivation times, otherwise it will cause great damage to the mind, energy, and blood. This spirit crane finger belongs to the attack and attack technique routine, so it's okay to practice more rounds. He practiced so hard. On the one hand, it is to prevent wild thoughts after calming down. The little lady has been treating him with so much kindness and affection for decades, even a wooden person can feel it. Now she is clearly going to do something somewhat dangerous, how could he not be worried? On the other hand, he wants to improve his practical skills as soon as possible, Lin Xuankong secretly thought to himself. One of the reasons why the young lady didn't invite her to go out of the city is because of her strength. If she doesn't have enough strength, she has to follow along, which is a burden. If your strength is strong enough, and you encounter similar situations in the future, you still worry about not being able to help the little lady. Additionally, although I am not particularly certain that Zhang Wu and Ma Xiong will have to deal with me, it is always right to improve my own strength as soon as possible. After all, Zhang Wu is in the later stage of the first tier, with nearly 100 elite gang members who have been killed and attacked for a long time under his command. The Manluo demon bead is aimed at a single opponent, and the young lady is not by her side. If Zhang Wuruo really wants to deal with himself, it is difficult to dodge a clear spear and a hidden arrow, but it is still somewhat dangerous sitting by the old willow tree to rest for a while. Lin Xuankong focused his attention on his mind, watching the progress of the Songhe Yanshou Gong. When teaching the Cangsong stake and Linghe finger, the young lady said that the next level of the Songhe skill is much more difficult than the entry level. She said she may need to practice for 3 or 4 years, or 5 or 6 years before she can reach the next level of cultivation in Songhe Gong. Thinking of these, looking at the messages in his mind, Lin Xuankong shook his head slightly and said, "Where does it take 4 or 5 years to reach the next level of cultivation?" End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Speed of progress refers to precision steel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Speed of progress refers to precision steel realm. Middle stage of transformation skill. Pine and crane longevity extension skill. Initial insight into the path 3280. In just over a decade, the progress of Songhe Yanshou Gong has exceeded 1/3. In the process of continuously practicing Songhe Gong, Lin Xuankong's realm of transformation has also steadily improved, reaching the middle stage, and his body has undergone a huge transformation. Especially with arms that have already exerted over 1,000 pounds of force, their skin and flesh are tough. The first layer of Chufan is to use Chufan Qi and blood to focus on refining the arms. When the muscles and skin of both arms and hands are perfectly refined, the first layer is also complete. 1/3 of 10 days, according to my current cultivation speed. When I wait for the young lady to come back in 10 days, I estimate that I have reached the late stage and only need 1 step to complete it. I don't know what expression the little lady will have when the time comes. However, the young lady said that her initial speed of practicing Songhe Gong was similar to her own, and she didn't know if what she said was true. If her talent was really strong enough, I'm afraid she wouldn't be too surprised to see herself advance to the later stage. It's so outrageous, it can be almost as fast as my own 50 times speed bonus. Fortunately, I am currently in my 50s and have a 50 times increase in cultivation speed. By the time I turn 60 next year, I should have a 60 times increase in cultivation speed. At that time, my cultivation speed will be even faster, much faster than the little lady. Lin Xuankong sighed for a moment before finally looking at the blue stones in the courtyard. Looking at the finger hole left by the little lady on the big blue stone, he secretly said. After the first layer is complete, he can also point it out like the spirit crane finger demonstrated by the little lady, piercing through the hard blue stone. As for now, he turned his head to take a look at the old willow tree in the courtyard, and then his chi and blood ran, leaping to the side of the old willow tree. The next moment, with a soft hiss, the old willow tree trembled slightly, and his right hand has already penetrated into the hard trunk of the old willow tree. After effortlessly pulling out his right hand, a hole several inches square and half a foot deep appeared on the trunk of the tree. Lin Xuankong nodded, quite satisfied. Now in the middle stage of my transformation, although I cannot easily pierce through blue stones, when my chi and blood reach my arms and fingers, my toughness is close to that of refined steel. With just a hint, it's already easy to pierce through the extremely hard trunk. This kind of power, if you touch yourself 10 days ago, if you point it down, you will definitely not be able to withstand it and will definitely die on the spot. Especially with the progress of Songhe Gong, the use of Linghe finger has become more proficient. With such exquisite martial arts skills, if everyone were fighting empty-handed, even if they were to confront over 50 fierce subordinates like Zhang, it would only be a matter of a dozen or so clicks. While he was secretly pondering, over from the old wooden building, suddenly there was a knocking sound on the door. Lin Xuankong pressed his mind and quickly walked into the wooden building, heading towards the outside. He opened the door, only to find a strange man wearing servant clothes and a servant hat. The man saw Lin Xuankong open the door and said, "Are you the old Lin head who sells pancakes?" Lin Xuankong searched his memory for a moment, but never remembered who the person in front of him was. "Are you?" The famous family member Ding said, "I'm Lian, the servant of Li Mansion in Dongshui Street. Tomorrow our Li Mansion will hold a birthday party for the third child, and we will make a water table. I heard that you are good at making cakes, so I plan to let you make cakes, deep-fried dough sticks and other staple foods." Upon hearing what he said, Lin Xuankong suddenly realized, in my memory, my predecessor, due to his good cooking skills, often got the job of making flowing mats for wealthy families. The servant continued, "We need to make a flowing banquet for 6 days. After these 6 days, we need to make a lot of pancakes, but we can get a reward of 2 taels of silver for this job. You can find 4 or 5 people to work with and give them some. 2 taels of silver. When selling pancakes on my own, I have to work hard for a month or so to earn 1 or 2 taels of silver. Of course, making a flowing banquet for such a wealthy family must be tiring. It's definitely too much for an ordinary old man to bear, so we need to find more helpers. After calculation, 2 taels of silver will be divided among 4 or 5 people, and in fact, they won't earn too much. However, with my current physique, doing this job alone is definitely easy and comfortable." Thinking of the more than 30 taels of silver that Li Xiaolan gave him, he secretly thought to himself, "I should also earn more money. How can I always eat soft rice? How about it?" "If you agree, I won't go find anyone else," the servant asked. "Well, I'll be there early tomorrow morning. Li, come in and take a break." Lin Xuankong nodded. The servant nodded when he agreed and turned away, obviously not interested in chatting with such a poor old man. After the servants of the Li family left, Lin Xuankong closed the door and continued to hone his spirit crane fingers in the backyard. After leaving Wudongli, the famous Ding went straight to Li's mansion. After he walked away, Ma Xiong, holding a birdcage, leisurely walked out of a tavern on the street. He watched from a distance as his servant Lian left, his eyes flashing. A member of the Black Tiger gang beside him said, "Brother Ma, it seems that Mr. Lin has taken over the work of the Li Mansion." Ma Xiong teased the sparrow in the cage and then nodded with a smile on his lips. Since Big Brother agreed to take care of Mr. Lin, this old man has been staying indoors for more than 10 days, which is quite strange. However, money can make ghosts grind. There are too many ways to make this old man Lin leave the beautiful little lady's side. At this moment, there were many pedestrians passing by, but when they saw Ma Xiong on the roadside, they all showed fear and avoided from afar. Even some wealthy businessmen and young masters who are dressed in luxurious clothes and eagerly welcome Zhang Wu's right-hand man, Ma Xiong, are always respectfully greeted. Ma Xiong stood for a moment and said in a deep voice, "You must go through the dense forest path from Wudong to Li's mansion. Go find 2 brothers who are strict and ruthless, and stay there tomorrow morning. In addition, call the Hu brothers." The gang member frowned and said, "Hu brothers? How about calling them too for this opportunity to make contributions?" Ma Xiong smiled and said, "How can we monopolize this opportunity for meritorious service? The Hu brothers have outstanding talents and have already entered the realm of transformation a few days ago. After just 5 years of cultivation, they transformed into martial arts, 1 step ahead of me, who had been practicing for 6 or 7 years, and advanced to the early stage. With such great talents, these 2 people will definitely have a bright future in the future. Maybe I have to go even further than Brother Zhang. As a person, I need to think more about the future." The gang member was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and said, "Amazing, Brother Ma is indeed Brother Ma, he can see far." But Ma Xiong's eyes narrowed slightly and he called the Hu brothers, not just to make friends with them. The young lady of the Lin family is so powerful, but the elder brother wants to crush the old man Lin himself. This job cannot be refused, but there must be a way out. If the Hu brothers take action together, if there are any problems in the future, the 2 of them, who are tall, will be the best shield. To wander in the martial arts world, you don't just rely on force, you have to use your brain. New books require support, investment, tickets, and tips, but the most important thing is to follow up and read the latest chapters. Follow up is very important for new books. Please. End of this chapter.